Are watches the new football accessory in the SEC? And are Mouthguards taking over across every conference from an upstart grassroots company? We got retro cleats this week, Jordan brand footballs, and of course, Coach Prime rolled out with some new Diamond Turf Maxes and Diamond Turf cleats on the field. Unfortunately, that didn't help them win very much. I spent a decade in brand marketing at Nike, and half of that time was in football, so I can't turn this part of my brain off. When you're watching touchdowns and highlights, I see the marketing battle happening underneath the surface. So I know y'all are interested in this too, because the short form video I did on this has over 1 million views across Instagram and TikTok. People want to hear more about this, so we're going to dive deeper. We're going to examine the hidden marketing strategies that are happening on the field. We're going to see how Nike, Adidas, and Jordan brand are partnering with colleges to try to capture your attention, and which grassroots companies are upending them in certain areas of this game, and how NIL has affected all of this. So let's jump in. We're going to dive deeper today, and hit that subscribe button if you're interested in more stuff like this in the future. All right, couple of big stories here around Auburn to kick it off. First, they went from Under Armour to Nike. We'll talk about that here in a minute, and some of the other programs that have switched sides. But more importantly, we saw Auburn players on the field wearing watches. So one of our guys had 2 watches on one hand, and the other guy was wearing a G-Shock while playing in-game. Is this a uniform and equipment violation? Most certainly, yes. Will he be able to wear a watch next week? Probably not. But this might be one of those growing trends. And one of the ways that you can find the trends that are coming in football is to pay attention to the 7-on space. Overtime Elite did a video a couple of weeks ago that went crazy viral with all of these young players in Miami showing off their Apple watches while playing 7-on. And they were all dead. And there was this joke about, you know, these players, why have they charged them and whatnot? He's like, it's accessories, bro. Why are you pressing me? Like, chill.
You know how it died?
I didn't charge it, bro. It's just for accessories, bro.
So you never charge it?
Nah, I do charge it, but like right now it's for accessories, bro.
All right, that's fair.
Now, I've had a lot of comments and people sending me DMs about what the true nature of that is. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on it. But I do think it's funny that the kids are wearing them in 7-on. And 7-on has way less uniform restrictions, and so they can do all kinds of creative things. The custom cleats started in the 7-on era, and we're able to get going crazy. You see all kinds of accessories and bands and headbands and sunglasses. You've even seen Oakley into this 7-on space, where they just launched a new sunglass this week, actually, to feature on players playing 7-on. So really fascinating space. If you're ever wanting to know where the trends are coming from, it starts in the grassroots realm. Speaking of grassroots, the second craziest thing that I saw this week was the NXTRND Mouthguards on every single player across every single conference. It wasn't every single player, but I saw a ton of players wearing these mouthguards. And the reason that they are so striking is because they're often different colors from their team. I saw a couple like Oregon. I saw a couple players at Auburn wearing ones, but you had players at Florida State who were wearing the bright green mouthguards that aren't a team color. And so they really stand out. And the second thing then is that it's a NXTRND brand. Now, historically, the large apparel companies that sign these big deals with the schools, they cover head to toe, and there are very few exceptions. So they want cleats, socks, pants, jersey, gloves, helmet visor. The towels will be made by that apparel company. And so it's really striking to see, because I think in my old role, I was always paying attention to stuff like that. Now, I think the players should be able to wear whatever they want. And I do think some player will sue the NCAA, and they will eventually be able to wear their own footwear. But for now, when you sign and commit to a school, you are required to wear the footwear on field of the official apparel sponsor. You can do NIL deals to promote another company that's not that company outside of that on social media, and completely outside of team marks and outside of team locations and facilities. But for the majority and the purposes of this conversation, NXTRND has taken over the mouthguard market, and Battle kind of started in this place as well, doing a lot of the accessories, and now they are doing cleats, and they are doing crazy numbers. They are now featured in the front of Dick's Sporting Goods, and one of the biggest brands at Dick's Sporting Goods now in the football category it is really wild to me. They basically took the grassroots space and went heavy into social and leaned heavy into Florida football culture. NXTRND seems to be a carbon copy of that, and they are doing the same thing, but they are doing an incredible job. They have deals with athletes like Ryan Williams at Alabama, and meanwhile, Battle has a deal with Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, interestingly enough, plays at a Nike school at Ohio State, has a deal with Battle, and then has a Adidas footwear and apparel deal outside of the football field. We will see if the big brands like Nike and Adidas continue to allow that, or if there is now a carve out in these contracts that allow for those accessories. Next, speaking of Auburn, they switched from Under Armour to Nike. This particular one was fascinating to me. One, the Nike uniform looks amazing on them, but it is so odd to see them. I thought that Under Armour would never let go of Auburn because they won a national championship with Auburn. That's the only school that Under Armour has won a national championship with. And they beat Oregon, Nike's flagship program and the crown jewel, and where the founders, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman, went to school. And I thought they would just hold on to them forever. Obviously, Maryland is the founding birthplace of Under Armour, but Maryland hasn't been competitive at all. And so that led me to think that they would always hold on to Auburn. They didn't, and they've had to make some tough decisions. They had to let the UCLA contract go a few years ago as their business has really suffered. This upcoming season in the NFL, they just renewed their license with the NFL to be able to show their logo on field. So it looks like they're shifting some of those dollars into a new place. We also saw South Carolina, a crown jewel of Under Armour in the SEC, also is moving over to Nike. Nike is really invested in women's basketball. A'ja Wilson is one of their signature athletes. And so you can always follow the signature athlete sometimes and see how they will work with a brand to go get that school if they can. So there will be a lot of A'ja Wilson integration into the new South Carolina deal. The other deals that we saw were Tennessee, which is currently a Nike program, has signed a big deal with Adidas for next year. That is a really fascinating one because a lot of the dollars are going to be allocated towards doing specific NIL deals for recruits and players who are coming to Tennessee. This will continue to be a needed proposition for schools as they have to make up now a $21 million deficit. We have just had the House settlement pass, which basically says that colleges now have a $21 million salary cap to pay their players, and that has to go across all sports. The current season that we are in right now is the most expensive rosters you will see. You may see programs that have a $40 million roster this year versus the probably $17 to $20 million that they're going to try to do in the future. But that's another video. And we also have Penn State going from Nike to Adidas. So Penn State, that's a surprising one. I think that Phil Knight had a relationship with Joe Paterno for a long time. But, in terms of the Big Ten, they're fallen in terms of preference and priority, but continue to watch this space. There will be a lot there, and we can do a deeper dive on how some of those brand deals work and why they position themselves in that space. It's also important to note that a Nike school has won the CFP championship every year since the CFP's inception, except for Michigan, which is a Jordan brand school, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Speaking of CFP, 10 years ago, we had the Vapor Untouchable rollout, which is the shiny silver cleat. I worked on this in my career when I was in football marketing down here in Texas on the rollout for that. So it's wild to see footwear being retroed. And this is a new model of a type of retro that is not a long-term throwback. This is kind of the Protro model that Kobe is credited with thinking about, which is basically saying, hey, I want my older footwear and that silhouette to come forward, but I want you to put the latest innovation inside of it. So this pleases some people. They tried this with the Vapor Carbon last year. The Vapor Carbon has an absolute cult following. There are NFL players who will go on eBay and pay up to $1,000 to get old Vapor Carbons because it has this mass following of football players who just absolutely love those. So the Untouchable is going to be a real focus, it appears. Anytime you see these college teams roll out these new cleats and you go across multiple teams, that is then clearly a priority footwear model for the big apparel and footwear brands. So The Untouchable is one. We saw that at Georgia. We've seen other programs like that. I saw some Clemson colorways and players wearing that on the field. So that fly knit colorway you'll probably see a lot of. The others are the Jordan 1 and the Jordan 4 look to be the priorities for them. So we saw that across Florida. I saw the OU ones that got rolled out. Of course, Michigan and North Carolina are always going to have some really cool colorways. But more importantly than some of the great Jordan footwear, Jordan Brand now has a football. And this is only interesting, I think, to probably football nerds out there. I'm a big Jordan fan, have loved Jordan for a long time. A lot of people criticize seeing the Jumpman on football uniforms and football cleats. I think it's great, and I think it's really cool to see the football now with the Jordan Brand. Big Game USA is the manufacturer based here out of Dallas, Texas, who makes these footballs. And they do that for probably 80% of the teams, regardless of the brand that they're with. In a future video, I think we can go do a deep dive on Big Game USA as they're here in my backyard. So let me know if you're interested in seeing that. But the Jordan football looks really cool, and I'm stoked on it. If you want to see a great example of a good NIL campaign, Beats just did an incredible rollout where they licensed not only the player's name, image, and likeness, but they utilized all the school marks so that they could show all those players on their field, in their locker room, in their weight room. That is definitely the way to go if you're trying to do good NIL marketing. Not enough of these players are actually recognizable enough on their own without those other marks. And so, of course, you see players like Arch Manning with his Vuori deal. Those are cool. But most people wouldn't recognize them if they were just walking down the street. So you need that school mark if you really want to cut through. 1 + 1 = 3 in that instance. Oh, and of course, I can't forget about Coach Prime and the blenders rollout that they had, which was incredible. But they had some Diamond Turf Maxes that they rolled out. There are some that are being available for retail that are gold with a little bit of baby blue on them. It looked like the players got a version that was just white and gold. And then we saw some on field of these Diamond Turf Maxes, which are great. And that's just going to be a big recruiting advantage for Colorado to have your head coach be able to have all this product. You're going to get exclusives, the gold and the black and the white. It just works for Coach Prime. It's just incredible. So they didn't win. I hope that they can start winning and get back on track. I am not, for the record, necessarily a deep Colorado fan. I worked with a lot of programs. I just like seeing good matchups. I think that's it. Let me know what you found interesting from this episode and what you want to hear more of in the future. Please go ahead and subscribe. Let me know what you liked here in the comments. And we will do more of these sports marketing deep dives. I'm going to try to do these weekly going forward. So I greatly appreciate your time and attention. Thanks so much. Class is dismissed.